He wasn't chasing legends, just chasing scraps. The ashen soil of Korvac's prime cracked beneath Yalin, Thorn's boots as he picked his way through the ruins of a forgotten war. Where command centers once bustled and artillery roared, now only wind and rust remained. Sunlight barely pierced the thick atmosphere, but even muted light revealed the scale of devastation. Twisted girders, blackened bunkers, shattered transport hulls. Jalen adjusted the cracked straps of his filtration mask. 40 hours without a solid meal, and the air reeked of decay filtered through old battlefields and recycled systems. His scavenger's bag was nearly full, nothing exceptional, just a few fused circuit blocks, depleted power cores, and a scattering of intact mineral rods. Enough to keep breathing another week. He'd been many things: technician, deserter, ghost. Now, he was simply a man who had slipped beyond the reach of all flags. Korvac's was one of those places deemed resolved by the Central Directive. And their rival faction, the Dominion Pact, resolved just meant abandoned. Treaties were signed, credits exchanged, but no one came back for the bodies. His scanner chirped, metal signature. Deep, he crouched near a fractured wall and started to dig, ignoring the pain flaring up his left side, an old injury from a firefight he'd never talk about. The edge of something dark gleamed from beneath a layer of rubble, not corroded. That was rare. Jalen's heart picked up its pace as he unearthed it, bit by bit. The dust revealed a full exo-armor unit, sleek, obsidian plating lined with violet. Trim and faded sigils near the breastplate. Not mass-manufactured. This was bespoke gear, elite level. The neural link panel at the base of the collar still looked functional. A suit like this was worth a starship and a new life. He reached for it, thought of anywhere but here and then. Step away from that suit, or you die next. The voice was female, metallic, and raw, like razors ground against stone. He froze. Muscles locked. Slowly, he raised his hands and turned. She stood atop the twisted wreckage of an old artillery post, 30 meters off. Her armor was damaged, mottled with grime and scars. Dried blood painted the torn fabric where flesh had once bled freely. But her skin, dark cerulean, patterned with faint tracer veins, marked her unmistakably as Ovathi. A race known for loyalty that outlasted orders. Her right eye glowed orange, the other pale gray, both fixed on him with absolute intent. The pulse rifle in her hands hummed with energy, aimed straight at his chest. Yalin didn't move, didn't flinch. "I'm just salvaging," he said calmly. "Slowly," she said. He turned with deliberate care, hands away from the knife tucked against his thigh. She studied him, her weapon never wavering. "You know what that is? A combat suit. Looks untouched. Worth something." She snorted. "It's more than a suit. It's a legacy. A curse." That word caught him. Curse. He stood motionless. The wind howled through the shattered base, dust whispering across ruined concrete. "I'm just trying to live," Yalin said. "Same as you." The Ovathi didn't answer immediately. Then, to his surprise, she lowered the rifle barely. "Take nothing more. That armor doesn't belong to the living." She turned without another word, limping slightly as she vanished into the skeletal remains of a Cums tower. Jalen stood there for minutes after she'd gone. The rational part of his mind told him to leave it. Walk away. The suit wasn't worth dying for. But the glint of those violet sigils kept pulling at him. He reached down and lifted it. That night, the wind came cold and sharp. Yalin sheltered in the carcass of an old recon skiff, its hull providing just enough coverage from the wind and predators. A fire crackled low beside him, casting flickering shadows across the armor. The violet trim shimmered in the firelight, like veins beneath skin. He couldn't take his eyes off it. He'd cleaned the interface ports and carefully removed the panel guards. The power cell was still intact, just dormant. Then came a sound, gravel shifting. Footsteps. Jalen reached for his blade. Heart steady, breath shallow. She appeared in the hatchway, same overthy woman. Same hard eyes, the same rifle, now lowered. She looked at him, then at the armor propped against his bag. You didn't listen. Never been my strong suit, he replied. She stepped in, favoring her left leg. Her presence didn't feel hostile, but her caution was clear. She sat across the fire from him, close enough for the shadows to reveal the pale scar slicing from her temple to her collar. J. L.A. offered her half of his ration bar. She took it wordlessly. Her fingers brushed his. Her skin was cooler than his. Alien, still alive. You said it's cursed, he said. Why? That belonged to Commander Drenkalis, she said, chewing slowly. He wasn't killed in action. He was betrayed. Jalen's gaze flicked back to the armor. By who? By his own command. He refused to carry out an order, one that would have erased 3,000 lives. So they erased him instead. Silence. The fire popped. You knew him. I served under him. What was the order? They called it Operation Surpoint. Total sterilization of a civilian sector used as a hostage buffer. Callis found a way to extract them. They overrode his command and sent a kill team instead. Yalen leaned forward. And you? I tried to stop them. Failed. I was marked as Kier and dumped like trash. She looked at him, the violet fire of her eyes burning through the smoke. Until you dug that up. Yalen examined the armor again, his technician's instincts flaring. The neural interface was untouched. High-level encryption, but his hands moved with muscle memory born of war. He knew this tech. May I? He asked. She nodded. You're already in it now. He connected the interface, overriding the dormant safeties. A low hum responded. The lights along the chest plate flared gently. It works. Of course it does, she said. They built it to outlive us. A soft chime. One file unlocked. Unprotected. Jalen accessed it. A face appeared, human, male, late 40s. Worn features, gray at the temples. Commander Drenkalis. If you're seeing this, I'm dead. Not by war, by my own. They ordered Sector 4 purged. I refused. Civilians, children, hostages. I found a way out. They didn't want survivors. They wanted silence. Yalen glanced at her. She said nothing. There's another file, he murmured. Play it. Another voice file. Audio only. Broken by static. Private Sierra Nix. She disobeyed orders. Helped civilians escape. They didn't kill her. They erased her. Stripped her name, rank, left her behind enemy lines. Yalen slowly looked across the fire. You're Sierra. She met his eyes. I was. The fire between them dimmed, but the truth burned hotter. Yalen stared at the woman, Sarah Nix, a ghost of the war, stripped of everything but memory. Her eyes didn't flinch under his gaze. If anything, they dared him to judge. You saw the recording? She asked. He nodded. Then you understand what this is. I understand it's the kind of truth people kill to bury. Sierra gave a dry laugh. You catch on fast. The armor's lights pulsed faintly now, as if responding to their conversation. Yalen examined the neural net's activation logs, traces of authorization signatures, biometric logs. He was already imprinted. I interfaced with it, he said. That means you've been marked, she interrupted. The armor logged your presence. Old tech, but still connected. It sends out a quantum ping when activated. Someone's listening. Jalen's throat tightened. Listening for what? For ghosts like me. For voices that won't stay buried. He stood, pacing inside the wreckage of the skiff, panic rising in his chest. I didn't ask for this. I just wanted a payday. Sierra didn't respond. Her silence was its own kind of judgment. I should leave, he muttered. Go dark. Hide. You can't, she said flatly. The armor's neural imprint keyed. To you now. Wherever you go, they'll follow. He spun toward her. You don't know that. I do. Because they tried the same thing with Calais. He thought he could run too. Didn't make it far. She leaned in, her voice cold. You're not a scavenger anymore. You're a witness. And witnesses don't get to walk away. Yalin turned his back to her, staring out through the broken hull, the stars barely visible. Behind Korvax Prime's choking haze. He had survived this long by staying invisible, avoiding flags, avoiding purpose. But now, what would you do if you were me? He asked. Sarah's answer came without hesitation. I'd stop surviving. I'd start fighting. Yalin left the skiff before first light, armor components packed. He made it 3 kilometers before guilt began to rot in his gut. Her words echoed louder with every step. When he looked back from a ridge, she was still there, silhouetted by dying firelight, scanning the horizon like she'd done for years. Always watching. Always alone. That was what broke him. By noon, he'd found her trail again. She didn't try to hide it. She wanted to be found. Or maybe, deep down, she hoped someone would prove worthy of the truth she carried. He followed until he spotted her through his scope, crouched behind a rusted bulkhead, rifle raised. She didn't flinch as he approached. Just turned cool and controlled. You came back. I did. Why? Because surviving isn't living, he said. And because maybe I've been running from the same truth you've been fighting. Sira studied him. Her rifle remained steady, aimed loosely at his chest. I thought you were like them. Hear the truth and walk away. I was, Yalin admitted. For a few hours, her eyes narrowed. Not forgiveness, but something shifted. She lowered the rifle. There are others, she said. Kala's unit. What's left of it? If they're alive, they need to hear what we have. And if they're not, then it's just us, the last witnesses. They left under cover of darkness. Yalin carried the armor in pieces, strapped tightly across his pack. Sira led the way, navigating with the instinct of someone who had walked every kilometer of this ravaged wasteland. They moved in silence. No stories, no questions. Just terrain, threats, and survival. Slowly, Yalin learned her signals. A finger raised to stop. A hand sweep for detour. The subtle body language of soldiers who don't waste breath. They stopped beneath the remains of a crashed transport for a brief rest. Yalin leaned back against a burnt strut. How long have you been out here? He asked. 1,874 days, she replied. 5 years. Give or take, he whistled low. Alone? Not always. The others scattered. Some hiding in cities under. New names, some like me erased. He stared at her. Why didn't you run? Just disappear? Because someone had to remember. They continued on. By dusk, they reached what had once been an outpost's outer sector, now skeletal ruins. Patrol drones passed overhead silent, scanning. They're not military, Sira whispered. Private contract, erasers. Yalin nodded. He'd heard of them. Black Ops. Corporate cleansers. Truth destroyers. They took cover in a collapsed fuel depot. Inside waited a small group. Survivors. An old man missing an arm. A woman with half her face burned. A young man in a hover chair. A non-human with masked features. Sira raised a hand. In silent greeting. Took you long enough, said the old man, voice coarse. I brought proof, she said. And someone who activated it. The group stared at Yalin with obvious distrust. You brought him? Asked the woman with the burned scars. He came himself, Sira replied. I just didn't stop him. They let them in. The space inside was fortified makeshift walls, scavenged equipment, hidden defenses. The last holdout of a forgotten truth. Yalin laid the armor pieces out on a table. The group stared in disbelief. You better not be lying, the old man muttered. I'm not, Yalin said quietly. But I'd understand if you didn't trust me. He reactivated the neural system. The armor pulsed. Commander Drenkala's voice filled the bunker once again. His refusal, his betrayal, his final request. The survivors stood frozen, some in tears, some shaking with rage. When the second recording named Sarah, no one looked at her the same again. "You carried this all alone?" whispered the burned woman. Sarah nodded. "Not anymore," Yalin said. A plan began to form. Whispers of how to distribute the file. Contacts, routes, risks. Then someone noticed. A man was gone. One of the group, thin, nervous, vanished during the playback. "Varen," the old man cursed. "He's gone." "He's selling us out," Sarah said, already moving. "How long?" "Maybe minutes," someone answered grimly. Weapons were checked. Barricades reinforced. Yalin secured the armor again. "Is there a way out?" he asked. "Maintenance tunnels," said the hoverchair man. "But they'll expect that." "Then we don't run," Sarah said. "We hold, we make them bleed." Yalin looked around the room, wounded, haunted, determined. "You should go," the old man told him, handing him a compact sidearm. "Get the evidence out." Yalin stared at the weapon, then shook his head. "I'm already marked. Might as well make it count." The old man nodded once. Karn Varric, Chief Engineer, Kalas Division. Yalin Thorn, former Tech Corps. Varric cracked a grim smile. "Good. We're going to need that." At dawn, the sky split open with fire. The attack began with the precision of executioners. No colors, no insignias, just silent efficiency and the hiss of energy discharges targeting structural weak points. Explosions ripped through the upper supports of the depot, sending steel beams crashing down like falling gods. But the defenders were ready. Karn Varric and Yalin had already rerouted ancient fuel line controls to double as explosive traps. Emergency shutters, long dead, were coaxed back into service to redirect the blast force. The team didn't stand. They braced, fired, moved with the fluidity of those who had long expected death, but still refused to greet it passively. The first wave came, fast eraser teams in black armor, visors down, rifles humming. No warnings, no negotiations, just elimination. "Yalin!" Sierra Nix shouted, ducking beside him behind a reinforced strut. "They're pushing the east flank. I see them," he replied, adjusting the scavenged rail driver he'd hastily modified the night before. It fired once, loud and brutal, ripping through two attackers before the recoil knocked him off balance. The armor pieces glowed on the table behind them, pulsing in rhythm with the neural link more than circuitry. Now, a symbol. A target. One eraser soldier stepped forward in the chaos, his rifle lowered but aimed. "Yalin Thorn," he barked, voice amplified. "Return the armor. Walk away and you live." Yalin rose just enough to shout back, "It's not armor. It's a voice. Kill me and you silence it forever." A shot cracked the silence. It hit Yalin center mass. He dropped hard. Sarah's scream was more fury than fear as she surged forward, rifle raised, cutting down the shooter with surgical rage. But Yalin was still alive. The armor panel he'd strapped across his torso had taken the brunt of the impact, though the kinetic shock had bruised him deep. Blood seeped from his side, but consciousness held. He crawled back into cover as Sarah dropped beside him. "Stay down." "Can't," he gasped. "We need to broadcast." Understanding passed between them. The truth wasn't just something to hold, it had to be heard. They made their way to the depot's old comms array, where Davin, the young man in the hover chair, was frantically rerouting signal pathways. "How far can we reach?" Yalin asked, coughing blood. "Maybe 50 clicks max," Davin said, his hands flying over the controls. "Most of the main network's toast, but local relays might carry it farther." "Enough," Sarah said. Jalen connected the armor to the comms uplink. overriding outdated protocols. But the transmitter was damaged, part of the circuitry had to be manually completed outside, at the exposed antenna junction. "I'll go," Sira said immediately. "No," Yalin said. "It has to be me. The neural imprint won't accept anyone else." It was a half-truth, but necessary. She stared at him, jaw tight. Before she could argue, another blast shook the depot. "We're out of time," Karn shouted from across the room. Jalen took the transmitter relay, eyes locking with Sira's. "If I don't come back." "You will," she cut in. "You better." He ran outside, under the open sky choked with ash. The antenna still stood. Just tall enough. Just exposed enough. He climbed, every movement a scream of pain. He reached the junction and slammed the relay in place. The armor flared crimson, bright against the twilight haze. The eraser teams paused. A figure emerged from their lines, a commander, polished armor gleaming. "End it," the commander called. "Deactivate the signal. Hand over the armor." "We spare you." No reply. "We know what you're trying to do." "Who do you think will hear it? Who will care?" Yalin didn't move. A soldier raised a weapon. Sira appeared beside him, walking into the open. No cover. No fear. Just purpose. She stood with him, shoulder to shoulder. 5 seconds left. The eraser soldier stepped forward. "You press that, and you die right now." Yalin looked at him, then at Sira. "Then neither will you," he said, and pressed the button. Transmission burst outward. Commander Cullis' voice filled the airwaves once again. His confession. His defiance. His execution by silence. Across the ruined landscape, settlements within range stopped what they were doing. Receivers chirped to life. Hidden units crackled awake. In places no one had cared about for years, the truth was heard. Yalin collapsed. Sira caught him before he hit the ground. Inside, the battle raged. Karn was wounded, his prosthetic sparking. Sarah, the woman with the burn scars, was shot but still directing tactics. Ammunition ran dry, walls buckled. Fire crept in. Then the second wave hit harder. Breaching charges tore new entryways. Erasers flooded in. Sira fought like a whirlwind. Back to back with Sarah, then with Yalin again, defending the console. "On your left," she shouted. He fired. Dropped 1. 2. Took a graze to the shoulder. Still standing, he turned to find Nira, once one of the doubters, charging across open ground to rescue Sira, pinned down behind wreckage. "You don't have to," Sarah began. "I do," Nira said simply, "because I believe him now." She triggered an old combat stim at her wrist and became a blur of violence. She cleared the path, then was cut down. But Sira escaped. And in that moment, something changed in all of them. Later, when it looked like they'd all fall, Yalin was hit again hard. Blood soaked his shirt, skin burning where the armor's neural ports had fused. "I need to finish it," he rasped. "You already did," Sira said. "No," he gasped. "We need to make sure it spreads." The signal had started, but the net was fragile. To carry it farther, someone would need to physically keep the uplink engaged through the final signal cycle. "It's suicide," Davin warned. "You'll be out there alone, exposed." Jalen's eyes flickered to Sira. "It has to be me." Sira looked like she wanted to protest, but she didn't single quotes instead. She touched his hand. 30 seconds once you're connected." He nodded and ran again. Back into the storm. As the final upload began, he stood fully exposed at the base of the antenna. Light flared around him, energy crackling from the armor through his body. The pain was electric. The erasers advanced again. Final warning came from their commander. "Turn it off or die." Yalin didn't blink. "Then I guess we both die." Transmission complete. And then everything exploded in fire and fury. The world erupted into chaos. The transmission completed. Commander Culle's voice now echoing across every salvageable relay within range. Across Korvax Prime's dust-choked landscape, scattered settlements, outposts, and neutral colonies received it. The voice of a betrayed leader, a plea for truth. A final legacy. And Yalan Thorne, the man who had once just wanted to trade scrap for rations, was the one who carried it. He didn't fall at first. The armor's neural surge kept him upright, even as the energy blast burned through his chest, tearing into muscle and nerve. Only when the light dimmed did he collapse, crumpling at the base of the antenna. Sarah Nix was already sprinting through incoming fire. She reached him seconds later, ignoring the heat, ignoring the pain, dragging him behind cover. His breathing was shallow, lips bloodied. "You idiot," she whispered, voice cracking. "You actually did it." He coughed. "Did we? Make it count?" She didn't answer with words. Her eyes, sharp and alien and impossibly human, said, "Everything." Nearby, the last defenders regrouped. Karn Varric leaned against a shattered pillar, his mechanical arm sparking uselessly, blood staining his coat. Sarah, limping from a gut wound, still directed the others in short, hoarse commands. Davin had taken a blast to the shoulder, but clung to the comms console, fighting to keep their signal stable. Nero was gone. Her body lay just beyond the barricades, surrounded by the wreckage of the eraser squad she'd obliterated before they brought her down. The combat stim she'd used had driven her beyond the limits of her body, but she hadn't hesitated. She heard it. Syrah whispered. And it changed her. The erasers, meanwhile, were scattered. Confused, the broadcast had worked. Not just as a technical feat, but as a weapon of memory. Their orders to erase a truth had been undone by the very man they'd tried to silence. JLEN stirred, wincing in agony as the pain returned. Syrah gently laid him down in the shadow of a collapsed wall, propping his head up on her coat. "Stay. With me. Not planning to check out yet," he groaned. They both looked up as movement shimmered in the haze. Civilians, survivors, drawn by the transmission. Dozens at first. Then more. Some carried salvaged weapons. Some came empty-handed. But all had one thing in common: faces turned toward the ruined depot, listening for something they hadn't heard in years. Truth. Syrah stood as the crowd approached, the last rays of dawn spilling across her scarred face. She hoisted the armor, the legacy of Kalas, onto her back. The violet trim pulsed faintly, its neural imprint alive with the energy of what had just passed. Behind her, Yalan coughed again, but it was lighter this time, less struggle, more recovery. He looked up at the figures emerging from the dust and ruin. His voice cracked. "What now?" Syrah followed his gaze, then looked back down at him. "Now we burn what's left of their lies, and build something better." Yalan tried to laugh but winced instead. "You've got a hell of an optimism circuit." She gave him a ghost of a smile. "No, just purpose." He reached for her hand, and this time she took it without hesitation. "Together?" He didn't say it out loud, but she answered anyway. "If you don't run," she said, her voice soft but firm, "we don't lose." And he didn single quotes T. In the days that followed, the recording spread. Kala's voice, his refusal to obey a purge order, his betrayal, and his call to remember was passed from cum relay to cum relay, smuggled across corporate borders and military checkpoints. It spread like a spark to dry leaves. Old names surfaced. So did old crimes. Those who had followed the Callisto Protocol found themselves questioned, challenged, and in some sectors, arrested. Others went underground. Some tried to delete what remained, but by then, it was too late. Kalas had become more than a man. He was a movement. And Sarah Nix, once presumed dead, now stood as proof that loyalty didn't mean blind obedience. Atop the ruined outpost where it had all begun, two figures stood again months later. Yalan, the burn still visible across his chest where the armor had fused to him. now wore a lightweight exosuit, not military, not scavenger, something new. Something his. Beside him, Sierra raised the rebuilt armor of Commander Collis above her head, not to wear, but to display, a beacon. The violet sigil at its heart glowed against the sky, refracting the sun's last light. Behind them, the shattered insignia of the central directive lay in pieces on the ground. Alongside it, scattered badges from the eraser squads, now symbols of failure and exposed rock dot, and rising behind them, from settlement after settlement, came new banners. Different colors, different shapes, some painted by children, some by soldiers who had refused their last orders, but all carried a single mark, the crimson-violet glow of truth. Remembered, they weren't the saved, they were the ones who stayed. And from that moment on, nothing would be erased again.